PR Connections Radio presents. This podcast is brought to you by LifeWave. Ready to elevate your wellness game? Meet X39 from LifeWave.com. This game-changing patch uses phototherapy to stimulate your skin, enhancing strength and stamina by channeling your body's innate energy. Simply apply it to harness infrared heat, naturally boosting your vitality. Want to learn more? Visit www.lifewave.com/VernD and step into a healthier, more active lifestyle today.
Hi, welcome everybody. Lisa Vasquez here from prconnectionsradio.com, Liberating Menopause. And today we are speaking on women in the workplace, going through a lot of shifts, a lot of changes. And the one thing that we never had back in history or in past generations was understanding, of course, our hormonal rhythm in this lifestyle that goes through transitions and changes. And so today I want to show you and talk to you about some of these things, because if we could learn to recalibrate with this recalibration in life that's taking place, but focusing on the nourishment that our bodies need during this time because of the craziness that's happening, because the shifts have changed. So many things have shifted in a woman's life that was never expected. I mean, we thought that schedules were set and we thought lifelong, careers were on the road and all you had to do was live every day, get up, go to work. And all of a sudden, all that was changed. Women live in a constant urgency with swing shifts and late nights, unpredictable schedules, or they're always on a leadership culture. There's so many things that can interrupt and disrupt that internal rhythm, the flame that we live through. And, when I first started my career, the one thing, again, I was only 20 years old. So when I looked at this one woman who was a big charge person at the time, and I was a student, she was the tech and the lead tech. But the time that had shown on her face and her aging abilities that were projected to me. Again, I'm 20 years old and I'm looking at this and I'm wondering, gosh, if I'm going to be in this field, in this career, I don't want to come out looking like that. What do I need to do? I mean, so this is why I asked for a second life. I didn't want to live and die in that career if my end game was going to result in how she had come through this life at this point of her time in healthcare. And, as I walked through it, again, women were always older than me, 30 years older than me, because in mammography, you had to be 50 to have a mammogram. I was 20. So now you, again, get to see the changes in a women's life. But it wasn't so much of the aging process that was stressing. It was just individual careers that I would notice it showing up more in women. And so recently I looked up some things, because in a senior professional woman, the non-medical awareness, I guess you would say, behind the layoffs, the shifts, the burnout, and the chronic illnesses that show up years after the first warning signs. Because all these things had been showing up in our lives. They're showing up right now as you're working. But because we always push through it, and this is how we've been understanding our world to be, just push through it. These are aging processes. There's a lot more to it. And some of these burnout things that have taken place as patterns, that's the whole thing, this burnout, stress, and disorders. So I looked up some of the codes that when you go to the doctor, they bill you off of. It's called ICD-10s. It's a coding process. And I wanted to know what were the most codes that were being used in this type of women's field, so it was a lot of sleep disorders, a lot of sleep disturbances, a lot of muscular pain, low back pain. I could see that a lot from the people who sit down all the time, joint pain, unspecified, chronic fatigue and exhaustion, stress-related digestive issues, When you don't have good gut health, balance of everything is out of whack, especially because the gut is so related to the brain health. So, this is where the fog comes in and all these things, irritable bowel syndrome, abdominal pain unspecified, cardiovascular stress. And we all know that in a women's life because we always know that women's hearts are at risk. And I believe that's a lot more to do because of our hormonal changes with the inflammation and everything that happens to us. And these codes, they're not labels, they're patterns that reveal the cost of a long career without nourishment. And this is why I want to talk about this today, because no one considers women. We don't walk into chronic illnesses overnight. And as I watched my career roll out, again, growing in it, all the women that I seen coming in from the working world as time went on and watched how it all rolled out, this is where you see. And at that time, while I was working, most of my women who came into retirement had all these appointments more with the healthcare, with their pharmacists, getting a lot of medicine, all these things. And then they were just more settled. They weren't really talking about, some did, but not a majority. I mean, at least 80% did not. 20% did tell me that they were taking up tap dance or doing things like this. And I would be like so amazed because these women were in their 80s and they're still tap dancing. But it was the women before that in their 60s, 65s. They were just sick, they were retired. They lapsed energy. You could just see it in them. It wasn't like they were getting up to go to the gym and do all these things. And they would share all this with me. And it wasn't because at the time they knew going to the gym and keeping up movement was very important. I mean, we've only really began talking about that a lot more now than ever before with hormonal shifts and menopause conversations and talking about what we need to do as women to keep ourselves up. And so, by bringing this to your attention, because of all the transitions, some jobs you have to go into a night shift now from being on a day shift all the time. You're going into swing shifts. I mean, because there's not a lot of choices that we get to pick from in a crisis when you lose your job all of a sudden and now you have to go reach for something. And I remember that at the time when I did have some layoffs in my life, I would go look for a job and nobody would take me because I would have to put down that I was radiology, and in radiology this is what you're doing. So it was very unlikely that they were going to believe that I wanted to really be a cashier at the food store or I wanted to do these things. They could kind of feel that, you've been doing this all these years and now you're coming for this. And so, I would never get those little jobs that I would try to apply for. And I always wondered what was wrong. I did have good customer care service, but that wasn't what they were looking for. Of course, they wanted that stability and dedication. And again, they only, I would think they profiled me for that. Because how do they not know that I wouldn't have liked the job and I could have stayed there with dedication? How do they not know that I wanted to step out of radiology and just change my life? They didn't, but they didn't ask me either. So it was just a job rejection, right? I didn't get the job. And so going through that, I would always be hitting walls, and it was just crazy because, when you're in the radiology field, that's all you apply for. And usually you can get that job. But when you get laid off and things are closing down and it's not opening up and you want to reach for a job, there's a lot of stress there because what can you do? You haven't done anything on cashier registers or, office things. I really wasn't a secretary type woman. I'm not crazy about sitting at a desk. So, there wasn't a lot that I had to choose from. And so what I did, there wasn't. So I would have to just, suck it up buttercup and make it through and push through and try to figure things out and wait and hope. And then, suddenly I did get a new job in the field of radiology where I belong. So, I went back there. But then, you're going to come into the other types of burnout stress, adjusting to the new job, what shift are you going to get, all these different things. But women, we've never known that, nourishing our hormones, getting the correct sleep, keeping that cortisol down, taking it in all that relaxation that we don't ever get. I mean, sometimes when we do get pushed out of these jobs and we see that once we're standing on the outside, you kind of, there is a long sigh and a little breathing room where, you actually just left something that was really so stressful. And now you get to see, gosh, glad I'm not going back to that right now. I mean, no, it's not a happy moment because you wish you were going back to that job. But at the same time, you're actually seeing the release of the, stress that you were living under because you really didn't recognize it because you just push through it. You live it every day. It's a constant, we get up, we go to work, we come back, we go through the same things. I mean, it's always the same fluctuation in that, but we're not looking at what it's doing to our bodies, what it's doing to us because we're not sleeping. I mean, when your cortisol is kind of in balance, say in the morning you wake up and you're so tired, but you slept all night, but you're still tired, that's a sign that something's wrong with that cortisol. Something's wrong with the levels because cortisol is the one that's supposed to pop you up like a Pop-Tart. It just pops. You should wake up and there you are. And then all of a sudden now at 10 o'clock at night, you get this burst of, wow, and you're going and going and now you stay up late and things like that. That's the imbalance of the cortisol because by that point you should be coming down. Cortisol rises and it goes strong, but at nighttime it starts to come down, decline so that you can find that sleep pattern. And that's where there's an imbalance. So women, if you're feeling and going through things like that, these are signs, these are patterns, these are symptoms that are happening, but we have to recognize them and not keep pushing through them. We need to find out what it is that you can do to help change that. And if you don't recognize it, this is why I like talking about it, so I can point these things out because a lot of our hormones, they've always been going and reacting. We just didn't know what those signs were. And that is a really big one. The hormone story, no one connects to work. That's what we don't ever do. When a woman lives in a long-term urgency, deadlines, shifts, changes, emotional labor. Can you imagine leadership pressure? Your body is raising all that cortisol. And at first, it's kind of, cortisol can be protective, but at the same time, it can become corrosive. And that's what happens when it becomes corrosive. These are some of those patterns that show up and start to change the way we're living. And we're thinking it's just part of our aging out, the patterns that reveal this cost of our careers without nourishment. That's the whole thing. I mean, we have to stop blaming ourselves and we want to reclaim that power. And this is how I want to encourage and bring positivity to you, to show you that we are on that teeter-totter. But if we can work it and keep it in a balance so that by the time we do get home, it's not so crazy. By the time we do get home, we can find that restful time that's coming to bring us down to relax instead of, oh no, getting a burst of another breath of air. And now you want to start taking up another project in the house that's going to last till midnight. You don't want to do that. You really want to learn to calm your body down. You really want to learn to take your mind and relax it and take it out of that big hustle, because that's a lot of where a lot of brain fog comes from too. When we talk about the cost of when the body reveals what your career really conceals, and it just depends on what type of burnout career you're in. Your symptoms, they're really more of a message. They've always been a message. We just never knew how to respond to them with answers because nobody ever did. They just kept going through them. We once led with confidence, navigating these swing shifts and doing these second shifts and roles and the disruption of your sleep patterns. You just still get up and go the next day, even though you hadn't slept. And, the patterns that are occurring that you're not even noticing. I mean, you're noticing that maybe, or you're just working through it and it's just another day and it's just another night and it's just another changes that you go through. You could be somebody who has a lot of anxiety while you're laying down and you're flipping and turning, and you need something to help you relax and you don't know what to do, and this is so stressful and that keeps you up a lot more also. And this is when you're thinking you're falling asleep and you're having that 8 hours sleep, but it's always being disrupted because you're not relaxed, because the body never came into that relaxing state. And this part of our life is so important because of the physical response that our body is going to take from that. And, our bodies can take a lot and they'll keep going with you on whatever you're taking them for the ride with. But there will come that day that the body will have to stop and pull back the curtain on the hidden root causes of behind all that chronic stress. It's going to have to show the senior women in positions and the awakening that happens when a woman finally realizes her symptoms are not who she's supposed to be. They are her body's way of saying it's time to choose yourself. If you want, to choose yourself, really, because I told you that we have to go to work. We know this, but we also have to live a life, and we have to preserve our life, and we have to help our life develop in these changes because we're growing up in this. This is where our growth pattern is. And we have carried the weight through long careers, leadership, but now the industry is shaken with these layoffs and the automation and sudden restructuring. The truth is rising to the surface, and the body keeps the score long before, we notice it in the world before, because we don't know. We've never known this. I didn't know this anytime throughout my career. Again, when I gained weight at 30 years old, I didn't know it was hormones. And now I had to go through years of weight, working it off, doing all that, regrouping myself. But at the same time, I'm still aging in my 30s, right? So then when I turned 46, I gained even more weight. And now you're standing there and, I didn't know I was in perimenopause, and a big, strong part of it at 46 years old, where I gained and went to 173. I didn't know, but I had to do it again. So here I am, you're drained, you're tired, but you're uncomfortable, and some people want to just continue that way with no challenge and helping themselves. And then there's other people like me, for instance. I wasn't going to be comfortable with that. I wasn't happy knowing I was 30 pounds away from 200. I wasn't happy at all with any of that. And, but I didn't know it was hormones. So I'm getting, crazy in my own mind. And now here's when I finally found a coach, because you have to reach for something more if you can't do it yourself and you want something better. So this is why reaching for that help, finding your symptoms, writing them down, noticing the patterns that are changing in you that don't adjust and agree to what your life living is about. The industries that this response to your life lived without support is going to eventually come into those chronic illnesses that I was telling you a long time ago. The women who were going into retirement were just settled. It was just going to doctor's appointments. It was just picking up their medication. It was just going home. And they didn't have a lot of activities. They weren't really doing much. And their biggest day kind of was when they go out for their appointments. And so one of them was when they came for their mammogram, because they got to get up, they got to go out, and they got to do something. They didn't just have the mentality of taking control and taking, because at that time it looked like life was just, you're on the ending track of life. Where in today, this episode, we're pulling back that idea, because that's not who we are anymore. Today, when the body tells the truth, we hopefully are going to respond with a better reaction. Because when women find out that these things have happened to them at this same point, say you're in your 60s, 50s, late 50s, right? Suddenly they start journaling, they start going to the gym, they start, changing the rhythm. And this is a good thing. But if I can get women in the early years of this field of their careers to do that now, instead of wait to that last moment when things are already piling up in the body, the illnesses. So, our hormones are like a big web, and one wrong pull of the web kind of takes it out of balance, right? And that's what happens when we don't know that we're imbalancing our flames of life in our bodies. And this is why all of a sudden there's so much chaos in our diagnose, because is it this, is it that? We don't even know sometimes until we get the final answer from the doctors of what's really happening to us. Then we get that lab work that says we're fine. And then we sit there saying, how can I be fine when I'm having all this? And now it's just more of a world where you feel like you're left alone to take care of this and do all this by yourself. But there's really so much more help out there now, because today the nourishment training is so strong. And during living this life, going through these changes, we have more to reach for, because again, our world today, we're in dance studios, we're going to the gym. I mean, even when you get your Medicare IDs, like I did, you get to have opportunities to go to the gym. So now, you're paying through your Medicare, you're not paying through your own personal payments anymore, because they want to help you stay in charge of your body and keep you going. So that was like a fascinating benefit for me and anybody else. When you're looking forward to these years that are coming, always know that plan's out there, so that you would never have to give it up. Because for a year and a half, I did have to give up working out, and it was kind of a bummer, because I was so charged and happy being at the gym. And now because I had to reorganize my life due to retirement, I had to change bills and cut things out. That was one of them that had to go. But I'm so happy because now it's back and it's coming through Medicare, and they want to help me thrive. And this is what we want to bring to you from this conversation, is that, hormones are a long-term life deficiency. People don't look at it that way. They don't know that. And my senior women, it really, it gets me when I hear them say, I don't need any of that. I've already gone through that. And it's not true, because it's a lifelong balance, and we need it, especially postmenopausal. That's especially when you really need to take charge. Hopefully you've taken charge already, but when you hit postmenopausal years and you're living, before, in past years, I've always seen it all covered up with a lot of makeup, right? Women would want to stay young, and they'd put on a lot of makeup. They'd wear younger patterns of clothes, and they'd really try to change the way they present themselves to stay under the younger clause than being in that mature clause. But today, I'm proud to be 65 years old and coming through, being who I am, looking how I am, having the energy that I have, and exploring and knowing that, again, the gyms open up doors and give me access to them just to keep me going. How crazy is that? And these are the things that, if we're doing it then, this is why it's so important for us to think of it now, because I don't want you to get to that chronic steps of life where it's really going to take you down a lot. Vacation time, your pension checks, and all those things will be dedicated to that lifelong health care that you'll have to take care of yourself with, because you won't have work insurance anymore. Yes, you'll have Medicare, but you won't have the work insurance anymore and all these things. Yes, Medicare would be a lesser payment compared to what you were paying for, but work was helping you sustain that, and those benefits are there. And that's another thing. People don't take, any advantage of their benefits. They don't use up their dental benefits. So by the time you get to that aging process, you're losing all your teeth. They don't take care of, you got dermatology on that insurance. You have everything that you can go through just to have baselines and checkups, just to scout the body, just to see what's happening. These are things that are so important. But whether it's time or the communication, there's some reason that blocks this moment. And we need to open up that door. We need to look at that insurance policy that you've been working with, paying for every month, but not using. I mean, there's a lot of money invested in that to be invested in you. And when the day comes and now you're in the hospital and you have these chronic illnesses, you don't want to look back and think, what if I would have done that? And what if I would have done that? These things are here for you now, for you to take care of, so you can stay tuned up. That is what it is. Stay tuned up. And we don't stay tuned up. We think that our body, like our stomachs, we think it's a garbage disposal, so we can just throw anything in it. But, that's not true, because throwing things in it is what gives you bad gut health. The processed junk that eats away at the lining and the stomach and things that, really mess up the whole digestive tract. And there's no nourishment. They're all empty calories. So all that fast food you think you're getting away with, yeah, it's fast and it's real fast at how it's destructing your bodies. But if you took the time to come back to primal years of living life and cooking for yourself and making those meals, remember, this is for you, and no one will be better at taking care of you but you. Because remember also, in the long term, you don't want other people to have to take care of you also. So that's something else that we have to look at as we're taking these roads out. And with these changes that we're going through, this invitation, that we're feeling like we're broken or we're breaking. There's a lot of ways today that we can fix ourselves, mend ourselves, reach out for help to, there's so many different people don't want to go have mental health checkups, just to go talk to somebody, just to relieve the stress, to relieve that. We want to just carry it in. It's like taking your computer and never cleaning out the caches, never, restarting it. You're just running, and all that information, everything is being blocked and it's all being piled up. And then at a point, gosh, it's all jumbled up. And now you're trying to say something and you forgot because it's all jumbled up. I mean, these are things that really do take place. They will happen to you because the more clouded we get when the hormones are becoming more disruptive because they're not nourished. I mean, they're yelling out to you right now. They're saying things, the evolution of hormones are not the enemy. They are the dance. They are the partners guiding us through every season. But when women live in the flame of life and the deadlines and the caregiving and the leadership, the flame can scorch that rhythm. I like talking about it in the rhythm of the flame because that is what we have. We have a burning flame in us. And when it disrupts, it can confuse the mindset. It can make you believe that, you're too emotional or you're too tired or you're too stressed, when in reality, it's simply being undernourished. It's undernourished. It's the mind saying, please give me a break, and then I want the break just when I'm going to go to sleep. Can you take out maybe 15 minutes or even start with 5 just to go sit someplace, even if it has to go sit in the corner by yourself, wherever you could find that moment of that secret place for you to take your mind and let it know that you're going and we're going to go relax right now and just sit there for 5 minutes just to try to bring some clarity. It's so important to do things like this. And I really hope that what I say today, you will look up those policies. You will look up, even in your own policies, you may have massage therapy, physical therapy. You might have a way to go to the gyms. It's really looking up what other really great benefits are in that policy. And then again, just using it for your dental, for your hygiene. This whole, we haven't talked about hygiene, but this oral health is so important because that's the whole gateway. What's coming in there is what's going down into the stomach, into the body. And if this isn't all cleaned out and healthy, then the inflammation, all that gook and junk will pile up. So on our next conversation, we might just have that conversation, but taking advantage of the benefits that you have, looking at some of the problems that you're seeing in yourself that you recognize as a change. Because again, you might think it's just part of your growing up and you're at this age and this is that. But honestly, if you look at the age that you are, think about the hormone shifts that you're in, actually getting a baseline study of your hormone chemistry to even see where the tanks are loaded, where they're not, where, there's different ways that the body shows when we're having different abdominal bills. You have some that are focused because your adrenal glands are being affected, or your thyroid gland is being affected, or your estrogen dominance has been so risen, you think that some of this weight gain is just weight gain, when honestly it could be estrogen dominance, it could be a hormonal overload. There's just so many things. And so an invitation to nourish yourself, to honor your rhythm, to reclaim your balance, and to choose yourself. And the same devotion you've given to everyone else at the job, at home, at what you do, it's time for you now. So I want to leave you with that, just remembering yourself in all of this, because this is a big ball of confusion right now for a lot of women and a lot of people, a lot of families. So we really need to take a moment to keep nourishing ourselves. And I'm talking mind, body, spirit, and food for sure. Keeping that food nourishment, trying, processed food is okay here and there. But if you could balance and come back home and cook and do these things that are going to really bring you the strength and energy that you need, that's what's important, because it's all about you right now. That's what's very important, all about you. Take care, everybody. Have a great week and another great episode. Looking forward to the next time. From PR Connections Radio, Liberating Menopause, Lisa Vasquez. Thank you.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.